So yeah, welcome aboard. I'm pleased to welcome Greg Harvey to the meetup this week, who's going to be talking about not necessarily ethical AI, but how to disconnect yourself from, the big tech AI, I guess. Uh, and Greg is MD of Code Enigma and has been a Drupal developer for many years, like myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I'll leave it to you, Greg. Take it away.
Cool. I think everybody here was here last time, actually, when we had a look at C deploy. So hello again. Let me figure out how to share my screen. Uh, where do they hide sharing your screen? It must be under more. No. Oh, it's a big green button right in the middle, Greg.
I was going to say it should be a big button.
Sorry about that. And now I just need to find the right tab. It's here somewhere. There it is. Yay, professional looking slides, hopefully. Is that working for everybody?
Yep, I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is a shortened version of a talk I did at local Gov Drupal camp a couple of months ago. Shortened because I'm sure you don't want to hear about government policy and so on and so forth. And also, you're probably a more informed audience than they were. No offense to them, but it was a mixed group. So there were people in there that knew more than I did, and there were people in there that didn't know anything. So sort of it was baby steps. But yeah, the talk was called "Take Control of Your LLMs" because, as Phil was saying, it's more about um, understanding that the landscape is a lot broader than Anthropic and OpenAI and Microsoft and Google, and what's out there and what tools you can use to kind of mix and match them, the options and so on and so forth. So over there, I didn't start with this slide, but I put it up there because I thought it was, I don't know, it struck a chord with me. There's a bibliography to these slides, which I'll share afterwards with the actual link to the blog post. But this was actually a blog post that was posted back in April, as you can see, um, and it's clearly a bit of a protest. But yeah, the whole thing about it being that if you're using generative AI, you're basically accepting all of these things. Um, and if you kind of go through them and hold them up to any of the big LLM providers, the US big tech crowd, basically, you're kind of like, yep, 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 oh shit, yep. So they pretty much tick every box, whether you like it or not. So that obviously has put the brakes on me quite a bit when it comes to using AI, insofar as um, I I kind of have a problem with the very idea of giving any money or wasting any of the planet's resources on Anthropic and OpenAI and the like, um, because of all of these things. And I don't, I mean, in my local Drupal camp talk, I went through them point by point and hammered them home. But I suspect that you're all informed enough to understand and have read the press around all of this stuff. So it's a scary world. It was interesting. I was talking to Jamie, Mr. AI in Drupal, um, the other day about this. Talking actually, we were just exchanging comments on LinkedIn. But he's a nice guy, Jamie. When I first met him, I kind of assumed that he would have drunk all the AI Kool-Aid, but actually, that's surprisingly not the case. He's very pragmatic. He just thinks that commercially this is the way it's going, and so you're a fool if you don't jump in with it. And interestingly, he was saying the other day that he doesn't see Anthropic or OpenAI, certainly not OpenAI, be surviving the bubble burst that everybody thinks is coming, and I think is coming as well. I don't see how the status quo is sustainable. Somebody's going to lose a lot of money, but yeah, it's an interesting one. But I think the sort of standout points for me were actually made by this guy. Um, and I'm not a religious person. I don't know if anyone is here is. generally speaking, engineering and science and religion don't necessarily make good bedfellows, but that's not always the case. But the Pope put out a paper. What do they call it? I can't remember. An essay, whatever it was. It was the first one he put out, I believe, since he got put in post, and he talked quite specifically about AI, but he talked about it from the point of view of centralized control and how actually, if you let a few powerful people or a few powerful organizations control something that's so potentially formative and game changing and also dangerous for humanity as a whole, that's a huge mistake. And he made a whole point about building horizontally, about not allowing companies like Anthropic and OpenAI and Microsoft to build towers um, of these softwares, basically, and actually that we have to find a way to move forward with essentially what he didn't actually use the words, but he was essentially saying we need to start treating these like open source projects. We need to start getting more people involved in building LLMs and other artificial intelligence solutions, and we need to prize control out of the hands of a small select group of American big tech companies and democratize the technology. And I thought it was an excellent paper. Again, in the bibliography at the end, there's a link to a video on LinkedIn where the editor of The Atlantic kind of takes it to bits for 3 minutes and just points out the key points. It's quite interesting. But yeah, as I say, as a technologist and as somebody who lives what we live, I kind of feel obliged to accept AI to some degree and accept that it's going to be part of how we work going forward. And so I've been spending quite a lot of time, potentially more time than I should have been, trying to figure out how to do open source a bit more ethically, or as ethically as possible, let's say, and what there is out there in terms of products, in terms of models, in terms of companies that are doing interesting stuff in this landscape that means that you can actually unhook yourself a little bit from the idea that you have to have Claude Code and tackle things slightly differently. And so what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about that and then show you what we've been up to. So the cornerstone of it, as I said in my local DrupalCamp talk, is really this kind of digital sovereignty stuff. So that's like, I've left this slide in here because it's a big sell for local government, but I think it should be a big sell for everybody. It should matter to companies. It should matter to even to individuals. That we all see people like every now and again somebody's like, oh, I've got to get myself off Google. But it's the same kind of thing with AI. I think that the digital sovereignty aspect of it is really important. And thinking, right, if I'm going to embed these technologies in my life, I need to be a bit careful about who controls and owns them, where the data goes, who owns the IP, so on and so on and so forth. So if you do any kind of risk analysis on it, you should be running a mile from big tech. But unfortunately, the British government isn't very good at doing that. So that's why they've bought every Microsoft product under the sun. but there you go. I was taking a bit of a step back from the big models. In fact, I was specifically refusing to use them, the sort of ChatGPT Claude Code. I still never looked at Claude Code. To this day, I have not played with Claude Code. I have a kind of bet on with a friend that I want him to try and use my open weights models with open code and see how it feels compared to Claude Code, because he's like a Claude Code power user. So I'm really curious to do that. I haven't got around to it yet. But I took a step back from all of that stuff and had a look around at like what there is out there, and there are standards emerging that are starting to change the way AIs and the software that interlinks them interact. Interestingly, one of the standards on there is not really a standard. The OpenAI API. It's kind of become a de facto standard. It's one of those things where OpenAI put out an API for their inference API. Well, they put out their inference API, and it's quite good. So everybody just copied it. So now you've got lots of OpenAI compatible inference API services out there that you can hook up to. But yeah, there's point being there's thousands of LLMs. The Wikipedia page that slide links to is not even a small portion of them. So you're absolutely by no means stuck using a particular big tech company's model. In fact, it's interesting because the big tech company models and the big models in general, they're popular because they're good at everything, but there's plenty of scope to use smaller specialist models for specific tasks. Like, for example, if you're doing like, I don't know, you're doing checking of X-rays for cancer signs or something like that. You're not using ChatGPT. You're using an AI that's been specifically created and trained and is much, much smaller than any of the models that these guys are creating because it has one job. Cumbria Council, funnily enough, have an AI that just grades potholes that they train themselves with millions of photos of potholes that were crowdsourced from their people sending them in photos of potholes in Cumbria. So you don't have to be stuck with one model. In fact, indeed, there's blog posts emerging these days where they'll basically tell you absolutely should not use one model. You should have one model for coding and another model for reviewing because they see quote unquote different things. So so it's a fascinating world, but it means that the idea of like sort of buying into one product like Claude Code or like Microsoft Copilot and then just staying in that world is actually detrimental, and there's no need to. So in terms of like what we've got available to us in the open source world, there's 3 products that I showed to the local DrupalCamp people and that I want to show to you. And they are Light LLM, Open Web UI, which has a really weird logo that doesn't say Open Web UI at all, but it's the circle on the right, and Open Code, which, as it says underneath, is an open source AI coding agent. Just out of curiosity, does anybody know one or any of those tools?
I do.
Oh, yeah, I've run them down your throat.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of open code as well. Yeah.
No, I haven't heard of any.
Yeah. A big user of open code.
Okay, so Alan hasn't come across them. David is an open code user. What model do you use with open code? Just out of curiosity, David.
So I've got my Copilot account, company account, which is plugged into it. So I've got tons of models. I've got so recently I've been navigating between Claude, a lot of Claude. So Claude Sonnet, Claude Haiku 4.5, Claude Sonnet 4.5, 4.6, Claude Opus 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8 is a bit too expensive right now.
But
and of course, we've got tons other. We've got GPT-5 Mini, which is not bad as well. It's almost free, doesn't consume so much tokens. We've got GPT-5. We've got a promo until the end of July, and then the price is probably going to go up in August. What else we've got? We've got Gemini. I've got Gemini. Quite a few Geminis here. And of course, each time it's with different versions. I'm not sure we've got Grok. We used to, but we don't have it anymore.
So yeah, David is the anti-Greg. He's using all of the closed source American big tech models.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Obviously, David. But
no, of course, yeah. I'm really plugged into the SLMs right now. I believe this is where your presentation is going. The small language models with the Gemma engine and all that stuff.
Well, not just, but
right.
But yeah.
So I'll just
there's a lot
sorry
of stuff
for
out.
interrupting.
No, not at all. No, it's interesting, and it's really interesting that you're using that with open code instead of Claude code, because you're like I suppose that's because you don't have
So
your company doesn't have a Claude license; they have a
So how does
Copilot.
it work? We've got a ticketing system in the company, and each month we can ask for a certain amount of credits. Last month I consumed about 120 US dollars. This month I'm already at about 84 US dollars. And what else? I navigate between the different models. So Opus 4.8 is super expensive. So I will only really use it once I have completely refined my plan and all my specs and everything. And certainly not just for like random queries.
Yeah,
There's various pricing models for Sonnet as well, Claude Sonnet. So 4.5, 4.6, 4.7. So you've got different prices there as well. So you have to watch out for your tokens consumption. And then you've got Claude Haiku, which is the equivalent probably of GPT-5 Mini or something like that, which are like the really, really cheap models. So I can do like 100 queries and it's only going to eat maybe 1 or 2% of my monthly quota, something like
yeah.
that. So
But yeah,
yeah,
right models for the right jobs is the name of the game, right?
right, yeah.
Cool. Okay. So where was I? Yeah. So yeah, demo time. I think I used this slide last time. So I'm going to stop sharing a second. There. And I guess I will share. Where shall I start? I'll start with Light LLM. If it will load. Yep. Okay. Bear with me a
Thanks, Greg.
second. I'll just reshare my screen again.
So I'm just telling other people in the call, when you install open code, you also get a bunch of free models. Like I haven't really thoroughly tested them. Like I think some of them are probably quite good. Like for example, DeepSeek V4 Flash Free. So
Yeah,
that's the Chinese.
we'll come to that, David, later.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, please.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
So this is. Can everybody see my screen again, or see?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can see it. Yeah, thanks.
So this is Light LLM. So Light LLM actually is a very interesting product. It's actually. Oh, hang on a second. That's opened in a new tab. Let me just switch to this tab. Share this tab instead. There we go. So it's actually a means of managing all your AI tools in one place. So the thing that's interesting about it is that if you are, for example, in a situation as a technical manager and you want to use models from all over the place, from all different providers. Maybe you've got a Copilot license. Maybe you've got also got a deal with a company like Scaleway or Ionos. Maybe you've got Amazon Bedrock. You can run it all through Light LLM, and Light LLM will present it all with a consistent API on the back. So actually, you can switch models seamlessly. So, like for example, if you're using AI with Drupal, since we're in a hashbang code and we're all Drupal developers, if you're using AI with Drupal and you use the Light LLM provider for Drupal, and you're using a particular model for, I don't know, providing alt text in images, and that model gets really expensive, with Light LLM, you can literally just swap the model that's being used by Drupal in Light LLM without having to touch the application. And Drupal doesn't even know that the model's been switched on it. But you've decided to make that change because this one's more powerful or this one's less expensive or whatever. So that's just one example. But I've actually logged in as myself. So here I've created a couple of keys. So keys are just API keys for access. So I've got an open code key for my desktop machine, and I've got an open code key for this machine. And that's all I've got at the moment. But I can go like there's a playground, so I can see that there's like some models. Because I'm not admin, I haven't got many models available. Let me go and have a look. Right, so I can see all the models available. So here I've got different models from different providers. Regulo.ai is an Italian provider. I'll come to them later. Scaleway is a French provider. So I've got different models. Got Quen Image from Regulo. I've got an embedding model, Quen 3 embedding from Scaleway. I was trying out the Minimax model from Regulo. We've got Quen 3.5. That's a beast of a model. That's the one I use most of the time for coding. There's a couple of Quen models. Apatus is a truly open source model. Again, I'll come to that later. But the cool thing about this is like when you set it up. So if I go to, I'll have to log in I'll just log out and log in as an admin. Just get the right login. It'll be that one. Oh, I know what this is. I changed the key because somebody, turned out it was me, was using the admin key. Bear with me a second. I'll just get the new password because I obviously didn't update Bitwarden. I didn't update Bitwarden deliberately because
No problem, Greg.
I didn't want anyone to use the new admin.
In the meantime, I'm checking the list that Phil shared from your presentation.
It's a Wikipedia list. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that's the tip of the iceberg as well.
If you jump onto things like Hugging Face, I think we looked at Hugging Face a couple of years ago in this meetup, but there's like several million different models there now. So
wow,
there is yeah, and you can get multiple different, like Quen 3.5 whatever, but you can get multiple different versions and different sizes and different token strengths.
Right.
Blah
right.
blah blah.
Yeah.
Blah. So yeah. It's all
yeah, interesting. You were talking about Hugging Face. We're trying right now to use one of their models and implement it in a Docker container or something like that, a little bit like
right.
inside the infra. This is probably what Greg is talking about in his presentation and where he's heading.
Yeah,
Looks
Super
like he's in.
interesting. Yeah, definitely. I mean, why would you want to use
No, I
an
meant
LLM?
it looks like Greg is into the platform.
Oh, sorry.
So off you go, Greg.
Yeah, so I'm an admin now, which is cool because now I've got an add model tab. So if I go in there, basically there's a load of pre-supported providers. So as I was saying earlier, Amazon Bedrock, Anthropic, OpenAI. You've got Hugging Face there.
I
We were just talking about
GitHub Copilot, as well.
Yeah. You've basically everything. So you can just pick a provider, pick a model, and as long as you have like a Hugging Face account or a regular account or whatever, you can just use those models. You can centralize your credentials. So like I've got centralized credentials for Regular and Scaleway set up there. They are both actually OpenAI compatible endpoints, as they call it, and then you can enter a custom model name. So I'll just go and have a look on their website and type in the model name. But what's quite cool about this is that under advanced settings, I can do things like it'll either pull pricing directly from the API if it's available. If not, I can actually tell it this is how much this costs. So it'll start to keep track of stuff. And that's important because when you go and look at keys, so these are all the keys of all of the teams. So here's Dan's open code key. I can actually go into Dan's key and I can do things like I can set him a budget. So I can say, all right, Dan's not allowed to spend more than X dollars a month. I can set him rate limits. I can limit him to specific models and so on and so forth. So I can do that on an individual key basis. Or if I want to, I can do it on a team basis. So we got teams. So we got testing, developers, sysadmins, Open Web UI, which we'll look at later, a Drupal team. So I can actually look at usage. I'm probably the most expensive person. Well, Philip's quite expensive as well, but that's our spend so far this month. So
Is that me
so,
or Philip? That's two Philip.
no,
heard
Philip, Croatian Philip.
Yes.
$176, Greg?
That's
That's not too bad.
$176. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Not too bad, yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's quite good.
Yeah.
And you've got obviously full logging. So we can see the different things. Like, as I say, I'm the most expensive person. You can see my open code key's been querying away this afternoon as I was doing some vibe coding. And you've got usage information, so you can go by key activity. You can see who was busy when. Who's been using Open Web UI, stuff like that. And then you can also centralize things like your MCP implementations. So like you can add MCP servers for doing specific tasks. Like, so you could have there's an MCP server for GitLab, for example, which you can just kind of install. And you can do that in each application. So you can install as MCP tools for Drupal. You could install it straight into Drupal if you wanted. But if you use Lite LLM, you sort of keep everything in one place. And it's worth noting, actually, that Lite LLM has been quite well developed for scalability. So they've thought of all that at the start. They kind of figured that this is a product that people are going to use at scale, potentially. And so they've got quite detailed documentation on how to actually deploy Lite LLM at scale, which is quite cool. But you've got things like, you can set up your guardrails. There's a bunch of guardrails you can just download and use. So I've got these GDPR guardrails in place. You can choose which teams they apply to, which models they apply to. You can set all kinds of stuff you can do in here. I mean, I haven't even had a chance to play with all of it. So Lite LLM, as I say, essentially middleware. You set it up. It's actually a Node app. It's pretty easy to install. And then once it's up and running, you just can basically hook in all your models and endpoints that you want to use. And then you have like one central point of management. So as I say, you can set up teams or individuals and you say, right, you can use that model. You can use those 3 models. You can't spend more than $100 a month, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can do all that from this kind of central management panel. Any questions about Lite LLM while I've got it open?
Yeah. I'd like to know, just check the website. Is there like a free community distribution that you can install like on-prem, or how does it work? Is it like
that's what you're looking at? Yeah, that's what you're looking at. It's in npm actually. You can npm install it.
Okay, so you've got it self-hosted, right?
Yeah. This is on the same.
That's super cool.
This is on a VM at Scaleway.
Okay, super cool.
So yeah, no, totally. This is the free version that we're looking at. There are things like, one of the things that's a bit of a pain is that the enterprise login features are not part of the free package. Organizations are also not part of the free package. So I know some companies have actually bought Lite LLM and then used them to host an inference API, like Regulo, for example, that you can see here in our model list. They themselves use Lite LLM to serve the models that they're selling. So they've bought enterprise Lite LLM and they're using the organizations feature to actually to manage billing and stuff like that. So it's a really powerful piece of software, actually. If you want to set yourself up as an LLM hosting provider, Lite LLM is basically doing the job for you if you buy it. And even in free mode, like we're using it, it's brilliant if you're an organization, if you're an IT team that wants to control usage of LLMs in your organization or something.
Definitely, I can see that. Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna move on from that to Open Web UI, which behind the scenes is actually hooked up to Light LLM, although it can be hooked directly as well to many of the same sources as Light LLM can be hooked up to. But I've kind of decided that I want to standardize on keeping our models and our control of our models in Light LLM, and then hooking various different pieces of software, LLMs, MCP servers, etc., that we might want to use into Light LLM, so that everything on the application side consumes Light LLM, and everything is configured and controlled within that. So even though we've got Open Web UI here, the models are being served from Light LLM. So Open Web UI is a kind of ChatGPT-like experience, with the difference that you can choose from the available models. So yeah, any of the models that I've made available to Open Web UI are available here to use. I default to this Qwen one because it's a good compromise. It's quite a big model, but it's not massive. It's relatively cheap to run, and well, we can ask it stuff. Does anybody have a question for it that's not too rude? I know David's
let's try something simple. When is the end of life of Drupal 10.5?
I'm going to leave the typo. So yeah, ChatGPT basically. Obviously, the age of the model,
yeah,
and the information that the model holds is kind of a point in time. Because one of the things I've not done with this instance yet is set up a web search agent. So you can set up a web search, and if you use something like ChatGPT, then it has a web search agent. In fact, believe it or not, I wrote a blog post about this quite recently. We get, on one of our busiest websites, we get over a million visits a week just from agentic web search from ChatGPT users, which is insane and mostly wasteful. Because
but we are also seeing the same kind of behavior, Greg, on many projects, and many clients are starting to question whether they want to allow or not this sort of traffic, because in the end, they started seeing decreases in their stats on their websites, meaning that the people are getting enough information from the prompt from the AI, so they're not clicking through. And so you're so
agentic web search is even worse, because actually the model has the knowledge that it's gathered, right? So the knowledge that we're looking at now is the knowledge that was harvested when the Qwen model was published. It's not searched to the internet for that. It just knows it because it's a huge model. But the agentic web searches are going out and searching for more context, so they can actually go and fetch data. One of the interesting things is, like, the customer concerned is a large British institution. Most of the agentic web searches were instigated by users in the US, which means that actually the agentic web search was crawling on the off chance it found interesting information that was useful to the user's query, but it probably was not. So most of those agentic searches are actually thrown in the bin after they've been done, and they're just a waste of everybody's resources, OpenAI included. But it's part of how the thing works. So actually, I think blocking, my personal view is allow model training, because then you get in the model, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. But you and I, David, we're working in government services. At the end, we want data to get to end users in the most efficient way possible. If that's through an LLM, so be it, as long as they're getting accurate data. So my view is allow training models, but don't allow agentic search, because most of it is useless. That's my personal opinion, but there's lots of opinions out there.
Good advice.
Back to Open Web UI. So as I say, ChatGPT-like experience. We've got all our saved searches on the left here. You can see all the stuff that I've been up to. When I was struggling to get things working, and I've been asking it this, that, and the other. And I find this model is reasonably smart. If it fails me, I jump to the Qwen 3.5 model, which is another level up. But the point is that we've got all of these models available. We've even got an image generation model if somebody wants to use it. And we can choose which models go in there and who can use them. Some cool features of Open Web UI is that I can create my own models. So I can actually take a model that's already in the system, like the one we were just using, and then I can play with all the parameters. So I can actually start playing around with all of the different mathematical parameters that you can feed into the model and make my own version of that with its own settings for all of these parameters, which is quite cool. And I can choose whether I share that with other people on the server or I keep it just for me. We have knowledges. So under here, I've got some interesting stuff. I've got our website. I've got all our ISO documentation, and I've got our sales documentation. So, for example, if I go and make a new chat, I can say, okay, attach knowledge, attach our ISO documentation, and I can say, what is our policy for clearing for, what can I say? What is our policy for
onboarding new employee?
Yeah, well, let's do that. Yeah, onboarding the employees. And because I've given it that knowledge, it's actually going to go and retrieve
Nice.
sources. And I've done, and this is actually scarily accurate. Like it's got all of our policies. It's put them into, it's embedded them. It's put them into a vectorized database with RAG.
Right.
And so now it's doing a RAG search, and it's actually pulled back from our actual company documentation. This is how we do it. And I read through this and I'm like, yeah, this is right. So that's brilliant from the point of view of an organization where if you're a larger organization, you can put all of your policy into a bucket like that. This is completely ring fenced, running on a VM in Europe. It's not being chat GPT shipped off to America or anything like that. It's actually it's all open source stuff as well. I mean, this is also open source, right? This is just install it and use it. And so I've got the ISO documentation, our sales documentation. I admit some of the I don't know if you've ever filled in public sector, have had to do a public sector sales proposal, but some of the questions that they ask you, you just don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
And so I have no shame in saying that I get AI to get me going, and then I'll edit the hell out of it, or maybe just use it as a framework or something. But actually being able to say, right, okay, here's all our sales documents from the last 5 years. Find me an example where we've done this thing, and it will do it. So that's been really useful. You can have indeed pre-created prompts. So I've got this one where it says, you are a sales specialist for Code Enigma Limited. Please respond to this piece from a request for a sales proposal. And then I can fill in the question. So it's like variable placeholders, basically. Keep your response to X words, write in X style. And then I've got a bunch of stuff just to make the thing behave, so that it doesn't do certain things that are really annoying and you have to correct every time. And also, LLMs in general tend to talk too much. So I've got avoid unnecessary fluff at the beginning and end of your response, because otherwise it just rambles on. But you can set your own prompts. So I've just got that one for sales as an example, but you could create different prompts for different things you might want to do. Then it supports Claude skills, so you can actually just create skills, which is like markdown documents, which give the LLM instructions on how to handle certain things, and you can use a particular skill. And I haven't really played with tools yet, if I'm completely honest. But yeah, and you can do things like this Google Drive information. You can attach a web page that it will scrape and look at, files, notes. It'll do real-time kind of RAG stuff. So if you upload a document, it will vectorize it immediately and then query it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'd say the main use case for this is really like, you're an organization, you're potentially a little bit worried about the idea of your data just like heading across the internet, heading across the Atlantic, and ending up in some coal-fired data center in Virginia, and you want to run things locally, and you want stuff that works. This, for me, in all honesty, is working very, very well. It's quite funny. You can tell I use Quen because every now and again the auto titles come out in Chinese. I've actually translated some of these, and they translate well back into English from Mandarin. That's the only thing I've seen that's weird. So yeah, Open Web UI. In terms of the admin side, this does support enterprise login. So these are actually LDAP logins. And in the settings in the back, I've got all my different potential connections. I've got all my models, which ones are switched on, which ones are switched off. Other integrations, MCP servers, etc. OCR, document reading, web search, code execution. You can do audio, text to speech, and speech to text. It can go both ways. You just need to point it to the right model. Image generation, all the stuff you'd expect something like ChatGPT to do, you can configure Open Web UI to do as well, and with whichever models you want to point it at, basically. So that's that. And then for Open Code, I haven't really thought of a demo for Open Code, which is remiss of me. I can show you one I was doing earlier. Let me share this. Window. There we go. Can you see my terminal?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it big enough? Yeah, it's all right. Cool. So I was doing a bit of vibe coding with Open Code earlier. As David was saying, one of the awesome things about Open Code is if I go /connect, it supports loads and loads of providers, including one of our favorites, Scaleway, directly. But you can also provide a config file. I won't bother leaving this and sharing another screen because it'll be too much of a pain. But but you can also configure it to use custom models, which is how you get like LLM working actually. So in our case, when I connect, I've got like LLM as a provider, and then you can also switch models once you're in. So at the moment, on this computer, I've only got one models configured for like LLM. But if I had like multiple models configured, then they'd be in this list. And as David said, there's some free models available with Open Code, 6 of them, which you can see there. So you can actually just use any one of those and just give them a try. So actually, without spending a single penny, you can actually download Open Code and try it with these models. I've no idea if any of them are any good. I always use this one. But yeah, Open Code is quite impressive. To give you an example of what I've been doing here, what have I been doing here? So yeah, I opened. This is literally what I was doing this afternoon, and Phil was the lucky guy that reviewed this code when I'd finished having it spat out by an LLM. So I started the project. One of the things I do quite habitually now is when I create a new project, I will ask Open Code to familiarize itself with the project. And if it doesn't have an AgentsMD file yet, which is basically instructions specific for this project for LLMs that might interact with it, coding agents that might interact with it, coding agents specifically, I'll have it create its own agents.md. And the cool thing about that is I'm slowly building up an agents.md file, which is going to be really good for Drupal projects. And I'm sure a lot of people are doing the same thing, because like if your agent keeps making the same mistake, you can actually tell it, add the note to agents.md to not do this. And then when you come back later and you tell it to read agents.md before you start working, it gathers all of that knowledge. That knowledge isn't lost. Like it doesn't start from zero every time. Agents.md becomes its kind of memory of the stuff that it's done in the past and the structure of the project. And so, I mean, a silly example is it has this tendency when it's trying to debug stuff of using curl to download web pages, and if the web pages are authenticated web pages, it will spend 5 minutes and thousands of tokens trying to figure out how it can scrape the page, when actually all it needs to do is log in, for fuck's sake. So I've actually got in agents.md, these pages are authenticated pages, just log in. So that it doesn't burn tokens trying to figure that out for itself. So yeah, silly things like that. So I've got my instruction was read agents.md and familiarize yourself with this project. And then I'd spotted a specific thing in the code. I'd say, look, there was a Drupal config file here. Now, I haven't done any Drupal coding for years. I'm absolutely hopeless. But I could see that the string was a string had been hard coded in a file that shouldn't have been, and I could see that that string was in a config file. So I just basically said, look, in the config sync directory, there's these settings. There's this string in the code base. Wherever it exists, replace it, and left the LLM to basically figure out, oh, right, to do that, I need to create a config factory, and I need to load that config in instead, and so on and so forth. So it did that. It did a pretty good job. And then I spotted another pattern where it was doing a similar thing for looking up bindy ends, where I also wanted it to use a different string. I wanted it to use a variable, so I was like, right, do the same thing as you did there, but in this file you'll find this pattern, fix that as well. So it did that, and that was fine. And then Phil did the code review and said, oh, hang on a second, it's using two different techniques in two different places. It's not really a problem, but it's not very good either. Let's be consistent. So I just went back to it and said, yeah, in this place you did it this way. That's the right way. Please change this other file to do it like that. And it did that. And that was almost it. The only thing is, then the other thing I quite like about it, it's not showing me that, it just says pasted one line, but basically one of the things that I do, which is quite lazy, but if it's done a load of coding, it's done a load of stuff like that, and it's nearly working, but you get like a 500 error or something. I literally just paste the error into open code, and it goes, oh yeah, I see why that was, and fixes it. And it's something that as a Drupal developer, you can probably do in 2 minutes yourself. But as somebody who knows nothing about Drupal, being able to just like go, this was the error message, and watch the LLM go, oh yeah, I see what I forgot. I'm going to inject this class here, and then it will work. And it does, and it does. And then I ask Phil, has it done the right thing? And Phil says, yes, it has. I'm like, happy days. I can code. So yeah, I wouldn't let myself loose on this alone. But as a tool for allowing me to increase the velocity of the developers around me, and also potentially for developers to increase their own velocity, as long as you always have that oversight thing, because I mean, Phil will be the first one to acknowledge that it does a pretty good job, but we are correcting it quite frequently as well. It's not magic. It's very clever, but it needs watching. but it has genuinely allowed me to start doing things that I would not have touched 6 months ago, because I would have just been like, oh, I need a developer for that. Whereas now I'm kind of like, well, I can probably do that, but I need a developer to check it. So it's been a bit of a game changer, really. But one of the things I like about it is you can see, if we look at that last, that's the error message. Look, I just pasted that into it. That was the message I was getting on live, and it just went through, and you can see it shows you exactly what it's doing. It looked for the class, it found the code it was after, it had a bit of a think, and then it realized that it hadn't actually included the config factory interface in these create form classes. So it did that and injected them in, and then added the necessary bits and pieces at the top, and lo and behold, it worked after that. So yeah, the nice thing about it is that you actually have the full output. So every time you tell it to do something, it's not just like going away doing something and then ta-da. You can actually scroll up and it shows you exactly what it's been doing. So you can kind of even review it. If you know what you're looking at, you can review it before you even make a merge request or a pull request. But I don't, so I make a pull request and go Phil. But yeah, so that is open code. And as I say, you can kind of hook it up to anything, or as David was saying, you can try one of the free models if you want.
One of the things that caught me out with open code is the build versus plan thing, where if you're in build mode, it'll go off and start tinkering with stuff. But if you just want to, like, if you've forgotten what Drupal cache context is needed for this situation, and I ask it a question, I don't necessarily need it to go into the code and start fiddling with it. It's more about I'm trying to, like, because sometimes this stuff is ungoogleable. You can't really search for it. So having it there as a sort of reminder is good. But yeah, it was running off and changing things, and I went back to the code and went like, hold on a second, that's not what I wanted.
Stop. So, and what's really handy is that's just tab. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it flicks between orange and blue in the bottom there. So in plan mode, it won't touch anything, but in build mode, it will. So yeah, as Phil says, if you just want to ask it for an idea, just pop it into plan mode.
The plan's pretty good as well, because it'll set everything out and then go, right, do you want me to do anything with this? And then you say yes, and it'll actually start doing it then.
Yeah, if you remember the rest.
Yeah, tab. You got rested to right.
Yeah, Greg, I just want to add, for the on Drupal.org, in the build pipelines, there are quite a lot of quality gates to control the quality of what was generated, whether it was coded by a developer or anybody or an AI. And so you can rely on jobs now like GitLab secret detection for any confidential hard-coded string information like that. So that will directly break the pipeline. GitLab security with semgrep, you can configure special rules for Python, PHP, quite a lot of different languages. Advanced security is also available if it's for open source projects. Otherwise, it's probably a paid option. And then we've got PHP CS plus Drupal practice, for all the specific security issues, code smells, and stuff like that. So with all these checks in place, usually my review process is much quicker. Actually, you're able to rely actually much more on what was generated. So I totally agree with you. You have to iterate and really set a very straight frame to what the technical frame to what the AI is going to build. But on top of that, I just wanted to add that you can also rely on multiple quality gates. You can even have, like you said, another AI model as a job, which will challenge and review the changes for you before a human developer comes and checks it.
One of my colleagues, Sunil, or our colleagues, Sunil is working with a system called Hermes to set up a bunch of tools that does all of this stuff. So yeah, I would caveat that with it still needs a human eye at the end. But you're right, you can totally it can catch a lot of stuff if you've got multiple models playing off each other, multiple agents playing off each other. And
for me, in my case, actually, it did several times.
Yeah. On the flip side, you can also spend an awful lot of money that way if you're not really careful.
Yeah.
There's the famous case on LinkedIn of the guys who ran up $120,000 bill with a team of 4 developers in 1 month with an agentic workflow and a Claude code price change. So you need to be a bit careful about how much it's going to cost you as well. But yeah, I mean, it is quite impressive. So just moving on from those quickly into models. Found this quite nice little diagram on Mastodon, actually. Sadly, I lost the source, so I can't credit it. But basically, it was just like sort of showing you the difference between the different types of models. So you got closed source models like the Copilot, the Claude, the ChatGPT, the etc. You've got weights available models, which means that they are not really open source. They've usually got license conditions on usage, whether those conditions are how you can use it or what you can use it for, or whatever. So some of the weights available models should be watched carefully because they pretend to be open weights, and DeepSeek being one of them, but they're not. They actually have usage restrictions in their licenses. Open weights models are genuinely open to use, but all of the training data and the training techniques are hidden. So the Quens and the Mistrals, you can grab them and you can use them. You can't know how they were trained. So when you get down to kind of like the ethical questions of how much energy went into the training and if it was crowdsourced, were people properly paid, all that kind of stuff. The open weights models, you cannot know. So from an ethical point of view, they're not really open source, but they're better than weights available. They're open to use. There's just hidden stuff behind. And then on the truly open source models, there are sadly not very many that are any good. I tried the Apertus one, which is a Swiss model. To be honest, I don't think it cuts the mustard at the moment. I haven't yet tried StarCoder or StarCoder 2. I'd really like to. Be interesting to see how they get on with coding, because they are proper open source models. One or two of the ones in the open source green box in that diagram are absolutely rubbish. Sadly, that one the one that's made in France there is, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's pretty terrible. So unfortunately, at the moment, we're kind of in a place where the most useful compromise AIs are in the open weights category rather than the open source category. But we can expect the open weights and open source models to get better. And I keep predicting that there'll come a point when the open weights and open source models are better enough than the closed source models, that the closed source models are going to struggle to make a commercial proposition that works, because their R&D costs are just astronomical, as we all know. So yeah, but in terms of like choosing models, I tend to be in the open weight space. I'd like to be in the open source space, but in reality, I haven't found open source models that work for me yet. So I tend to use the Quen models a lot, actually. I find the Quen models are very good. The model we were using in open code there, by the way, is the Quen 3.5 model from Scaleway. So different models have different purposes. You probably know this, but we've got embedding models for vectorizing data. We've got chat models, which is ones like the one that I was using in Open Web UI there. Vision modules that can do OCR and stuff like that. Coding models, like the one we use in Open Code. Image creation, video creation, translation, yada, yada, yada. They're all specialized models. So again, going back to like LLM, if you want to install different models from different providers with different strengths and specialisms, like LLM is quite nice because it's one software to bind them all. And where to host them. So locally or on a GPU server, you can use Ollama or VLLM, both open source tools for hosting your own models, because the models you can just download. So Ollama almost behaves a bit like Docker, like you can just kind of fetch a model and run it. VLLM is a bit more involved, but you've got a lot more choice. Like you can grab any of the models off of Hugging Face and just run them. So it's very powerful, but it's a bit tricky to work with. In either case, it is going to cost you an absolute fortune, because GPU servers are very, very expensive. And GPUs are equally expensive. at the moment. So even if you wanted to get a desktop workstation that was capable of running some of the larger models, you'd probably have to spend $10,000 on your workstation.
Yeah.
So there's just no cheap way to run local models. You can run local models, and Phil has run one on a Raspberry Pi, but you cannot be in a hurry, and it can't be very big. So most of the time you're going to end up using commercially available generative AI endpoints. Most of them are OpenAI compatible. And as it says there are many options. They can be pay as you go, or they can be subscription based. To date, I've been going pay as you go, though as our usage starts to ramp up, I'd be tempted by subscription based usage. Some of my favorite models, or models that I've been trying out recently, are QuenImage for image generation. We've been using that with OpenWebUI. It does a pretty good job. It's not bad, I have to say. Quen 3.6 I've been using a bit for code review. From Scaleway, we've got the Quen 3.5, the big coding model there. I find that really, really good for coding. The last one there is the chat one I was using. We've also got, in terms of staying in the European Union, Ionos have an inference AI, and they offer one of the video models, which could be interesting. I haven't actually kicked the tires yet, but it exists. And as we were saying earlier, if you go on Hugging Face, it's an absolute fire hose of models. Look, 100 pages, 100 pages of models. So knock yourself out. And the thing about Hugging Face is you go to any one of these models, right, and you can find out who's providing them. So in the case of this particular one, nobody's providing it. So if I want to use it, I have to put it down and run it locally with the LLM or something like that. But a lot of the models, if I go if I restrict it down to, well, I'll go for an inference provider. So let me just open the inference providers, because I know the Scaleway there. So there's a European provider, or OVH, European provider. So let's click on OVH. So OVH are currently providing these Hugging Face models. So what have we got? This is a very good coding model. So if I want to buy this one from OVH, I can just do it via Hugging Face. So I create a Hugging Face account, get an API key from them, and I can just consume this directly from OVH, and just basically put the details into LLM and start using it.
Nice.
And so you've basically got the whole of Hugging Face's model library, as long as there's an inference provider providing it to choose from. Now, I tend to be a bit picky about the inference providers, because most of these inference providers have little or no information about how they're getting their energy and so on and so forth. And so one of the reasons that I've tended towards Regular and Scaleway as the two that I've been using recently is because they actually do have zero carbon, low impact, or in the case of Regular, actually zero impact data centers. They're actually quite conscientious organizations in terms of how they run their data centers, which appeals to me. If you don't care, you can use any of the inference APIs that Hugging Face has signed up for. Nice thing about Hugging Face is it's a one-stop shop, really. You create a Hugging Face account and you consume the models you want. And if you combine that with Light LLM, you can start sort of controlling which models are in use by what teams and so on and so forth. That's it. There's a bibliography on the back. I will pop the link to this in chat now, actually. If I can find it. I think this is public. No, it isn't. Let me just make it public. Anyone with the link? So I can pop this in the Zoom chat.
That's great. It was a great presentation. Super nice.
Thank you. And thank you for helping with your own experiences, because I know you've been using this a lot. So.
Yeah, I think we have a very complementary vision. I'm also quite interested in the models that you've been using. I'll give them a try.
I would
I'll
definitely recommend trying out the Quen models. The bigger Quen models are very, very good.
I'll try. I'll give try. I tried DeepSeek already, which is really not bad. I didn't use it yet for coding in PHP, but I'm super right now. I've been super familiar with Claude Code, with the different versions for mostly for coding. But I will give a try to the other models that you mentioned. I wanted to ask, while we are still in the questions, have you checked the agents.md for Drupal from Amazy Labs, I think?
No, and I find that slightly an odd thing that they're doing, because they're kind of like sitting there going, "Yeah, we're Amazy Labs, we're a Swiss company, data protection, yada yada yada," and they're hosting
Yeah,
everything on AWS. So,
yeah, 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 yeah,
so I've kind of steered away from that because I just find
yeah,
it really weird. Um,
yeah.
and I'm like, well, why would I use your models when I've got all these other models that I can consume
Right.
in non-US big tech environments?
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, for sure. No, I just want to. I shared with you also site agents.md. I found out that you can have agents.md files not only for Drupal but pretty much everything for
Oh,
Apache,
cool. That's
for
nice. So ready-made.
Varnish, for any, and you can version them, you can share them, and so you have big repositories like that. And for everything, like you have, for example, I tested one for Postgres, so it's really super powerful.
That's
So
nice.
just coming back to the your
Mm.
mention of the agent files,
And you can
and
mix them. You can download a Postgres one and a
right,
Drupal. If you're using
right,
Postgres and a Drupal, and you just munch them
exactly,
together, and that's fabulous.
exactly. And
Really good.
there's also another one, Greg. I think you might be interested in. I think it's skills. Let me share with you the URL. Yeah, that's this one. I'll share with the. It's because you showed us the tab under the Light LLM for the skills. So you have
Yeah.
skills.sh. So this is also the equivalent to Agents MD. It's but for skills, and you can share different for anything, like for Postgres, Apache, well, anything you like,
Mm.
Nginx, whatever you need it for, like
Yeah.
Kubernetes, anything really. So it's really generic. It's not only Drupal. There are a few skills for Drupal though, so I
Yeah.
have.
No, absolutely. You're quite right, and it's worth looking around. There's a lot of also there's tools. So on Open Web UI, if you want to look for tools that do certain jobs, there's a massive open source library of tools, and you can just choose and grab. And as I said on their Light LLM as well, they've got a huge guardrails library, open
Right.
source guardrails library. So there's lots of stuff like that out there. But those are two really good links. Thank you for that, David.
So overall, what you presented us looks like a really great option.
So thanks very much, Greg.
You're welcome.